Alright, so let's talk about Pokemon specialties. I think the following topics are going to be super interesting and probably the ones that most people want to hear. But we are going to be talking about specialties, natures, sub-skills. This will give you enough information to cover the basis of what you need to know. So right now, Pokemon have 3 different specialties. You can argue that there's a 4th one because Darkrai got released and its specialty is all, but we're not going to include that in this video. So the 3 specialties that you need to know about are the berries, the ingredients, and the skill specialist. You'll know what specialty your Pokemon is if you just look on the screen and then you go on the top right, under specialty, you'll see over here, my Ninetales is a berry specialist, my Wigglytuff is a skill specialist, and my Ditto-Dave is a ingredient specialist. So it's no surprise berry specialists excel at collecting berries, ingredient specialists excel at collecting ingredients, and skill specialists will use their main skill more often than berry specialists or ingredient specialists. Skill specialists are the only Pokemon that can also hold a double trigger, meaning that they can trigger their skill twice. Berry specialists and ingredient specialists cannot do that. And you can tell when a Pokemon is doing that because they'll have 1 exclamation point over them or 2 exclamation points over them. Now let's move along and talk about natures and sub-skills. You may have noticed that your Pokemon have natures and sub-skills to them. It doesn't matter whether they are berry specialist, ingredient specialist, or skill specialist. Natures and sub-skills are randomized for every Pokemon, so very unlikely to find 2 Pokemon that have the same combinations of natures and sub-skills. And because they are random, some Pokemon might be better than other Pokemon. But what makes a good Pokemon? First, let's talk about the best natures. So the best natures in game would be the speed up natures, ingredient up natures, and the main skill up nature. Speed up nature is good on every Pokemon because it makes that Pokemon help out faster whether they're collecting ingredients, berries, or proccing its skill. So the speed of help nature makes it so that Pokemon are 10% more helpful, meaning that there is a 10% reduction in their frequency. Ingredient up is great on ingredient finding Pokemon. Ingredient finding natures make it so that Pokemon are 20% more effective at finding ingredients. Every time a Pokemon helps, it will choose whether that help will be berries or ingredients. Ingredient finding up natures shift the odds by 20% to favor ingredients over berries. And main skill chance up is great on skill-based Pokemon. Main skill chance natures make it so that Pokemon are 20% more successful at triggering their main skill. So this increases the likelihood of a Pokemon's main skill being triggered in addition to its help action. A skill trigger does not count as an item, it's just additional help whenever the Pokemon decides to gather berries or ingredients, but it won't fill up the inventory like a berry or an ingredient does. When it comes to sub-skills, you may notice that some of them come in different colors. So the white ones are common, the silver ones are a little bit more rare, and the gold ones are very rare. So the best sub-skill, it's pretty subjective, it's a huge conversation to talk about, and it really also depends on the Pokemon specialty. But the most basic answer to this question would be helping bonus, helping speed M, berry finding S, ingredient finder M, skill trigger M, skill level up M, and inventory up L. Now the number 1 sub-skill that is good on every Pokemon and that you ideally would want on every Pokemon is the gold skill helping bonus, which allows your team members to help out 5% faster. And this sub-skill does stack as well. You'll see over here I actually have 1 Pokemon with helping bonus on the team right now. If I had another one, it would give me a 10% boost in helping. So let's take a look at what the boosts and reductions are for the natures available. Speed of help up makes your Pokemon faster by 10%. Ingredient finding up allows for your Pokemon to be 20% better at finding ingredients. Main skill chance up allows for your Pokemon to be 20% better at proccing their skill. Energy recovery up makes it so that your Pokemon get 20% more from heals, whether that is a energy for everyone heal or a self heal. And EXP gains up allows so that your Pokemon get 18% more from the gains of their EXP. Now when it comes to reduction, if your Pokemon has a speed of help down nature, they are going to be penalized by 10%, so 10% less fast at helping you out. Ingredient finding down natures make it so that your Pokemon are 20% less effective and efficient at finding ingredients. Main skill chance down makes it so that your Pokemon will be 20% less effective at proccing their skill. Energy recovery down makes it so that there is a 12% reduction from heals, as well as overnight sleep and energy from the box that's recovered as well. This also applies if you're using a energy recovery incense. And EXP down gives a reduction of negative 18% when it comes to EXP. So this will actually make it a little bit slower for you to level up your Pokemon. Now let's take a look at some subskills and natures that cancel each other out. If your Pokemon has speed of help down as its nature, it'll be 10% less fast at helping you out. But if your Pokemon has a helping speed as subskill, it'll bring that speed up by 7%. Helping speed S will bring the speed up by 14%. For ingredient down natures, you get a 20% reduction in finding ingredients. But if you have the subskill ingredient finder S, you bring those odds back to 18%, whereas ingredient finding M will give you a boost of 36%. Main skill chance down will decrease the odds of your Pokemon triggering their main skill by 20%, but a skill trigger S subskill will bring it up to 18%, while the skill trigger M brings it up to 36%. You may notice that if you're raising a Pokemon that has an EXP up nature, it will take less resources to level up that Pokemon compared to a Pokemon that has EXP down nature, where you will use a little bit more resources in order to get it to a higher level. And the higher level you get, the more candies are required in order to level up. So EXP down natures can be quite the investment, but when it comes to a down nature, it's actually my favorite. I don't mind it because once you reach the max, you don't really feel that deduction anyways. The deduction is pretty much gone. Whereas if I had ingredient down will be with me all the way up to 100. But that is a very simplified way of looking at it. There are instances where, for example, on a berry farmer, ingredient down might be more ideal because it makes it 20% less effective to find an ingredient, which means that your berry specialist will focus solely on collecting more berries. So you may notice that during the snacking time sessions when you're doing your sleep research, you have Pokemon that are around and there is a little number next to them. This is their friendship level, so the more Pokemon you catch, the more you raise their friendship level. And after you catch a Pokemon till friendship level 10, every Pokemon afterwards will come with the golden skill at subskill level 10. So as you can see here, that's actually what happened for Aria. I caught it as a Wigglybuff, and I was really lucky that the gold skill at level 10 was a skill level up M. Huge shout out to Pocket Boy Games for this infographic, but you will see for Pokemon like Igglybuff and Bulbasaur, where their base evolution requires 5 to 7 friendship points, and they can evolve twice, they get their first gold subskill at friendship level 10, and then this happens again at friendship level 40 and friendship level 100. We won't go too much into this because this is something new that got added into the game, but what you need to know about this is that Pokemon now have different friendship level requirements in order to get their second and third gold skill to be guaranteed. And you might be wondering, wow, this is great, 100% chance at gold subskills. Not all subskills are made the same, and there are some subskills that you actually don't want on certain Pokemon either. But for the most part, the best gold subskills that people will be looking for are Helping Bonus, Berry Finding S, and Skill Level Up M. But what subskills are the best for Berry, Ingredient, and Skill Specialists, you may ask? That is a great question, and this is a great opportunity for us to talk about best natures and subskills for each specialty. First, let's talk about Berry Specialist. My Ninetales is a Berry Specialist, and for Berry Specialist, you really want Berry Finding S. This will help you find one more berry. Instead of finding 2 berries for you, they will find 3 berries. Another great gold skill to have, as I mentioned before, Helping Bonus. It's great on everyone. And for Berry Specialists, you really want speed, so Helping Speed S or M are really great to find on your Berry Specialist as well. So when it comes to the nature of berry finding Pokemon, the obvious choice for the best nature would be anything speed of help up. Some people might argue that speed of help up and ingredient finding down would be the best one, while speed of help up and energy down would be the worst one. Because energy does matter throughout the game, and it will help your Pokemon out much more if you have high energy throughout the day. As you can see, that is not the case for my Ninetales, but I was willing to settle for a main skill chance up. It's not the end of the world, it's still going to perform good, but if you really want to min-max, then you want helping bonus, helping speed M, berry finding S, and a speed of help up nature. If you find a Pokemon and it has a helping speed S, but not helping speed M, don't worry too much about it. If it's worth the investment, you could sub-skill seed it. So actually you see over here, I have helping speed S and M. So I can't sub-skill seed my helping speed S to make it a helping speed M because you can't have two helping speed M. But let's say I didn't have helping speed M there and I wanted to use a sub-skill seed. What would happen? Do I get to choose for helping speed S or do I get to choose for skill trigger S? Because both of them can go up to the M level. Well, what happens is because they're both unlocked, the game is going to randomly decide between the two and you leave it up to chance. So it can get quite expensive, especially for free-to-play players because sub-skill seeds are a very rare resource for you to come by. Okay, so in this scenario, let's say that my Ninetales is level 10. So I don't have helping speed, I don't have skill trigger. But I want to get helping speed and I want to sub-skill it. What's the best thing for me to do? The best thing for me to do is to get to level 25 and unlock helping speed. And then I use a sub-skill seed because it only has one option between berry finding and helping speed. Which one will it pick? Helping speed. You cannot sub-skill seed berry finding S to make berry finding M. There is no berry finding M in the game, so the game will automatically pick helping speed S and make it helping speed M. So back on track, don't feel too bad if your Pokemon has helping speed S. If it's really good and you see yourself using it in the long run, just use a sub-skill seed on it and it'll be perfect. So if my Ninetales was like really top 1%, the sub-skills right now would probably look something like helping bonus, helping speed M, and then berry finding at level 50. And then the other two, you have a little bit of flexibility. Some people might not want inventory up because then it takes a little longer for your Pokemon to reach their carry limit. Because for berry Pokemon, once they reach their carry limit, they continue to collect berries. They just go directly to Snorlax. And this is something called sneaky snacking that you might have seen whenever you wake up in the morning and you see a little pop-up screen that says sneaky snacking. Those are the extra berries that your Pokemon collects after they reach their carry limit. They continue to farm berries and they feed it directly to Snorlax. It sneakily eats the berries. So the higher the carry limit on your berry finding Pokemon, the more time it'll take for your Pokemon's carry limit to fill up and enter sneaky snacking. And because we're talking about berry Pokemon, it's also an appropriate time to talk about berries because every berry will have a different base strength as well. The strength of the berry is determined by a variety of different factors such as the Pokemon's level, the area bonus, the berry type, and the favorite berry as well. So for example, a level 1 Dragon Berry will give me 35 points, and at level 60, it'll give me 150 points. So right now, there's no map in the game that has Dragon type as its favorite berry, but if that were the case, and it's a favorite berry for that island, and my Pokemon's at level 60, and we're not going to take into account the area bonus, then at level 60, that Dragon type berry giving me 150 points as a favorite berry type for Snorlax will now be doubled, and it'll give me 300 points per berry. So for that reason, berry strength will be different, especially when you're looking at your sneaky snacking and you may notice that some Pokemon are doing a little bit better than the other. There's some things to consider, such as favorite berry typing, or just the level of the Pokemon as well. Alright, so let's move on to Ingredient Specialist. I actually like Ingredient Specialist because I like to collect ingredients and make dishes. But for Ingredient Specialist, the ideal sub-skills for these specialists are Helping Bonus, Helping Speed, Ingredient Finding M, and Inventory Up L. For the nature, Ingredient Finding is ideal. Speed of Help is also good to have on it. And we did talk about carry limit for berry specialist, where it might not be a good idea to have a huge carry limit on a berry specialist. Ingredient specialist, you want to have a big carry limit, because the thing is, once an ingredient specialist Pokemon fills out its carry limit, they can no longer farm more ingredients for you. And carry limit applies to both berries and ingredients. They may find more berries, but they will not find any more ingredients. So there isn't an equivalent of sneaky snacking for ingredients. Once it's full, it cannot farm more ingredients for you. So having ingredient finding up nature makes it 20% more likely for it to find an ingredient over a berry, which is why it may be ideal for some players to go ingredient finding nature over a speed of help nature if you really want to min-max things. I would also say that for ingredient Pokemon, catching them at a base evolution is also ideal because every time you evolve a Pokemon, their carry limit also increases. For berry Pokemon, you can get away with not catching them at the base evolution, but definitely for ingredient Pokemon, you want to take advantage of the carry limit, so catching them at the base evolution would be better for you to maximize the amount of space that your Pokemon has. Now, if you've been playing this game for a while, you will know that there are terms like AAA or mono ingredient Pokemon, ABC, ABB, ABA, it goes on. But this basically just describes the ingredient list that the Pokemon has. So for example, this would be an ABB. This would be a mono ingredient specialist with AAA, all beans. Ditto Dave over here is actually a really good example of when an ABC is not bad, because ideally for the second slot you do want leaks for early game players. If you haven't yet found a Diglett that has leaks in the second slot, but you did find a Ditto and it has leaks, it could be a good option for you to farm leaks through this. But then Tails is really good at level 60 over there, it gets unlocked, and remember, it is a highest base strength ingredient. So this is why it would be ideal. So I would say in this situation, ABC is alright, but most people will want AAA, mono ingredient, or ABB. For a berry specialist, it doesn't really matter too much because ideally the focus is that they farm berries, not so much for ingredients. So you shouldn't really rely on your berry specialist to farm ingredients for you. I guess it's a nice perk if it was a mono ingredient tier list, but if my berry specialist has good sub skills and good natures, but not an ideal ingredient list, I wouldn't go out of my way to farm another one just to get a good ingredient list on it. And then over here you see that Arya is AAB because it unlocked oil at the very end, but also as a skill specialist you're not going to rely on it to farm your ingredients either. So for that reason, I didn't really care that the ingredient list was not a mono ingredient list, but it really does matter when it comes to ingredient finders. There's resources out there that let you know which Pokemon excel at which ingredients and which one gives the highest output. So I do recommend if you're looking for which Pokemon is the best for what ingredient, seek out that information. But also keep into account where you are in the game, so it might look a little bit different for you just due to the availability of what you're able to catch right now. For example, up until now, I was relying on my Ditto and my Dugtrio to farm for leaks because it was easy for me to farm a Dugtrio early game. After I was able to farm some Quaxleys, I was able to find one that gave me double leaks because right now there isn't a Pokemon that is mono leak. So Quaxquavel is the best option right now for you to farm leaks, which is why you'll find that a lot of people that are farming for Quaxleys are looking for a double leak Quaxley or a ABB Quaxley. You probably hear that a lot of people make a huge deal out of the gold skill berry finding. There are instances where some Pokemon such as Gengar and Tyranitar can also double as a mixed specialist, where they are farming you ingredients as well as farming berries for you, and they perform almost like a berry specialist. But in most instances, you will not want berry finding on your ingredient finding Pokemon because berry finding makes it so that it finds an extra berry. And if it finds an extra berry, that's an extra slot that gets filled up every time the game decides that the Pokemon is going to find something. Is it going to find a berry or is it going to find ingredients? And if it finds a berry, instead of one berry, it's two berries. So it fills up 2 slots in your carry limit, making it so that it fills up a little faster, and then once it's filled, you cannot farm any more ingredients. So I wouldn't say it's the end of the world, but I do recommend that if it's an ingredient finding Pokemon, chances are you're really using it because you want the ingredients. So when I was early game, one of my biggest struggles as a new player was finding enough ingredients in order to cook dishes for my Snorlax. As I said before, when you're early game, just try to catch as much Pokemon as you want. You'll eventually find some gems in there, and it'll help you build a basis of what you already have and what you should go for. As you progress further in the game, you will develop some personal goals. For example, you might realize that for Curry Week, you're missing out on a good sausage farmer. So now you want to farm a good sausage farmer such as Charmander. For early game, the Kanto starters are actually pretty solid because not only do they farm ingredients that you will need to use, but they also have a skill called Ingredient Magnet. So as you can see over here, this is my honey. It's an ingredient specialist. I have mono honey on it, and this is the main skill, Ingredient Magnet S. So every time it procs its skill, it'll give me 11 random ingredients. And because I caught it from a Bulbasaur and evolved it all the way up to a Venusaur, my main skill is now at level 3. There's also Vaporeon that's a good option, but because Vaporeon only has one evolution, the main skill will only go up by 1, whereas the Kanto starters have 2 evolutions to go through, which brings up the Ingredient Magnet level to level 3. But I will say, if you really want a Vaporeon, maybe it's your favorite Pokemon, you have a Waterstone laying around, it would be a good option for you to raise a Vaporeon because it procs its skill pretty often. So even though it's a level 2 main skill, because it procs so often, you might find yourself getting more ingredients from the main skill than you would if you were to be using a Kanto starter. On top of that, the Kanto starters are all ingredient finding Pokemon, whereas Vaporeon is a skill specialist. And remember what I said about skill specialists, they are the only ones that can double trigger. So if you're really lucky, your Vaporeon will double trigger and you're gonna get a lot of ingredients. The one thing to note when it comes to Ingredient Magnet S is that it can only give you a random ingredient that you've already unlocked. So if you've not yet unlocked Leeks or Tails, you're not gonna get those ingredients when they proc their skill. So if you do have a Pokemon laying around and at level 30 they unlock a new ingredient for you, I would say it's actually worth leveling it up to level 30 even if you're not going to use it, because you at least get that ingredient and then your Ingredient Magnet Pokemon have a chance of dropping it whenever they use the skill. The last thought that I want to share when it comes to ingredient specialists is that don't focus too much on finding the perfect mono ingredient Pokemon before you decide to invest in it. It took me a while until I got my Venusaur, because I had a honey tomato, but because I needed a honey farmer, I decided to invest in my honey tomato because it's better to have something to farm me honey than have nothing while I search for a perfect honey farmer, you know? So invest in what you can now because you do have opportunities to catch better in the future and to raise that in the future. So if you need some guidance as to where you should level it up to, if it's a temporary Pokemon that you're using, level it up to 30 and then just save the rest of the candies for when you do find a really good Pokemon that you want to invest in. Worrying too much about catching a mono ingredient Pokemon might tunnel vision you from other objectives in the game and also might hinder your performance as well. Alright, so let's move on to skill specialists. Alright, so when it comes to skill specialists, the good sub-skills that you can find and would want to have are Helping Bonus, Helping Speed, Skill Trigger M, and Skill Level Up. So for nature, obviously main skill chance up is a really nice one to have, but Speed of Help is also good to have as well, because remember, speed is good on every Pokemon. Skill Level Up is especially helpful for free-to-play players because then it doesn't require you to use a sub-skill seed. And sub-skill seeds for free-to-play players are harder to get your hands on as opposed to main skill seeds. It was only recently that main skill seeds were added into the exchange shop. The game does reward you with sub-skill seeds for meeting certain objectives, but other than that, the only other way for you to get a sub-skill seed is if you are a Premium Pass member and you have access to the Premium shop. So if you're free to play, Skill Level Up is really nice because it just makes it even more cheaper for you to invest in your Pokemon without having to use those precious sub-skill seeds. Catching a skill Pokemon at its base evolution is very encouraged because every time you evolve, you get your carry limit increase and you get your main skill chance increase. So it is in your best interest to raise Pokemon, especially skill type Pokemon, at its base evolution. Wigglytuff has 2 evolutions, So from Igglybuff to Jigglypuff, that's a +1 on its main skill. From Jigglypuff to Wigglytuff, that's another +1 on its main skill. So what is its main skill level now? By the time it reaches Wigglytuff, it'll be main skill level 3. So as you can see over here, this is my Wigglytuff. I was really lucky in catching a good one because as you can see, the very first skill is skill level up M, and this raised my Pokemon's main skill by 2. So by the time my Igglybuff reached a Wigglytuff, its main skill level was level 3. And then because of the skill level up M that I have, it added 2 onto that. So it was main skill level 5. The reason why it's level 6 right now is because I actually use a main skill seed on it, which increases the main skill by 1 level. So we've talked a lot about the main skill chance increase, and it's pretty obvious as to why that is important for a skill Pokemon. But let's talk about carry limit and how that affects skill Pokemon. So if you remember, I told you guys that your carry limit can fill up when your Pokemon is farming ingredients or berries. The game rolls and decides whether or not it's going to carry a berry or ingredient, but once it's full, it's full. And that could be bad for skill-based Pokemon that have small carry limits, because if that bag is full, it cannot hold a skill trigger. So unless you're checking on the game often and you're freeing your Pokemon's hands of all the berries and ingredients, your Pokemon might be prevented from being able to proc its skill if it hits its carry limit. So actually sometimes having an inventory up sub-skill is not a bad idea to have on a skill Pokemon, because it will increase its carry limit, which means it's more likely to have a chance at proccing its skill before its carry limit gets full. There are other things to consider, like frequency. For example, legendary Pokemon, some of them don't evolve, so their carry limits are pretty small. And this can get pretty dangerous if its frequency is low and it's always at like top energy. If its carry limit is small, it's going to fill up really quickly, and you're going to either have to check the game pretty often to free up its hands, or else it's going to be full and then you might lose out on the opportunity of getting a skill trigger. And because of this, it might also not be a good idea to have berry finding on a skill Pokemon, because berry finding makes it so that your Pokemon finds one more berry. And if your skill Pokemon is very fast, it's going to be collecting berries, it's going to be collecting ingredients. That berry just takes up an extra slot. The carry limit is low, it's going to fill up pretty quickly. And it might not be able to hold a skill trigger by the time you log into the game and decide to collect everything, because once their carry limit is reached, they can't hold a skill trigger. So berry finding S is not a bad skill to have on a skill Pokemon. It really depends on other factors though, like frequency, carry limit, stuff like that. But if you really want to min-max, having a berry finder on your skill Pokemon might prevent it from proccing its skill as often as you would. Alright, and let's talk about main skills and the best ones in the game. Now do remember, this is a beginner guide, so this advice really is targeted to beginners. But first, this is a list of all the main skills available in the game right now. There's a lot, so I'm not going to go through all the names and what they do, because I don't want to bore you guys. But in terms of early game, what are the good main skills to look out for? Because as I mentioned before, energy is really important. You want to maintain good energy throughout the day for your helper Pokemon, and energy for everyone is a great buff because everyone gets energy from it. The higher level this main skill is, the more energy that will be restored per heal, which is really good. Another really good one is Charge Strength M, because every time it procs, your Snorlax gets a boost in strength. And if you have a Pokemon like Ampharos, who is a skill-based Pokemon, if they double proc, then you get a bigger increase in strength. For early game, Ingredient Magnet S is a really great skill because it just helps to alleviate the pain point of not having enough ingredients. And I think for early game, those are the main skills that you should focus on. There are better skills as you reach mid to late game, but I don't want to overwhelm you guys with that sort of information, so just focus on energy for everyone. If you find a Pokemon with Charge Strength M, that's great. Ingredient Finder, really great for early game, especially for the ingredient aspect of it, so you can continue cooking great meals. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on future videos.